morning, my friends. Welcome to another programme in the Universal Energies. Now, my guest today, before I introduce him, is a pagan. He's a druid. He's a lecturer on religious studies and ethics and psychology. He's also a good friend, and we're going to find out all about this, his life, how he got into what he's doing at the moment, and where he needs to go or wants to go from here. And this should give you some tools to understand that there is more out there to study and to look at and to find out about on your own individual roads. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Robin Herne. Pleased to meet you again. That is a private joke, but we won't go on too much about that. So Robin, explain yourself.
Well, as you said, I'm a druid and have been practicing for more years than I care to remember at the moment. In professional life, I work for West Suffolk College, as part of the University campus of Suffolk,
right.
But it is based at West Suffolk College, running the Religious Studies and Ethics degree programme, which, if anyone's interested, we do have plenty of places going for September, if anyone fancies getting a bachelor's degree in either Religious Studies or
That will go on the credits at the end, my friend, so you'll be able to find out that.
We do cover a whole raft of religions. It's a sort of a world religious approach.
Yeah, good.
So it's not a theology degree in that it's,
No,
which is all Christian, but this is a sort of a combination of many different approaches.
How lovely that is as well, to
Absolutely.
get people understanding of everything, the whole rather than the small.
That was the intention when I designed the programme, to make it as open as possible.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been living in Suffolk for about 25 years now, so I'm not quite a native yet. Give it another 25 years.
Oh, I think you're a bit of a native myself.
Might just qualify.
Yeah.
It's it, which is a lovely area. It is.
Yeah.
It's as I dare say, many of your viewers will know, in earlier centuries it was referred to as silly Suffolk, but silly coming from the word for holiness.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
The Anglo-Saxon term, rather than silly as in the
Yeah, and it's been confused all the way along the line since then. Yes.
So it very much is the holy county, and there's lots of Christian, pagan and all sorts of other sites, including the oldest Hindu building in the whole of Britain is actually sited in Suffolk. So it's encompasses a broad array of spiritual practice here.
Yes, and I do find that's very enchanting and lovely, because people get the idea that they don't have to be conditioned to one understanding.
Yes.
I won't call it religious diocese, because at the end of the day then I think that religious dioceses encompass everything. And so we'll just say they're not in a small group. They can go out and have a look and see what they do.
Yes.
So, why did you get into this?
Into Druidry.
Yes.
I started being about 11 or 12 at the time, looking to paganism in a very broad sense, a very general sense. My family were living in the depths of Buckinghamshire in a village not much bigger than this room actually at the time.
A big village.
Yeah. And there was quite a rural area, so lots of woods and things around, and I'd had, should we say in the loose sense, the word spiritual experience is a sense of presence, a sense of place, a sense of being watched by something in the woods, and I don't mean the vicar. But
No. That's another workshop altogether. We won't go down there.
And then I saw a programme on TV, a documentary,
Right.
where they were interviewing someone whose name I cannot remember for the life of me, but she was talking about Wicca.
Right.
And I thought, well,
Yeah.
she's saying, I've done that, and I thought this, and it was echoing a lot. So I went and raided the local library, and I was one of those annoying people who just kept renewing that. I don't think anyone else ever got a look into the pagan section.
Yeah,
That's
fun. Yeah, very much like me. I like. Go.
Absolutely. And it's also one of the reasons why I'm a great supporter of libraries. Are obviously under threat at the moment with finances and so on. But I didn't become a Wiccan overnight, but there's all sorts of reasons for that, because it's an initiatory structure and so on.
Right,
But it was
yes.
one of the subjects I looked at because of the documentary. And at that point in time, practically all of the books on paganism were more about witchcraft and Wicca
Yeah.
than they were about any other type
Mhm.
of paganism. But as the years rolled past, I found out that there were heathens and there were Greeks and there were Romans and this and that and the other. So I kind of broadened out and broadened out. And that led me into a deepening interest in Celtic spirituality, which is a slightly contentious term in that how you define Celtic is not without its political
No.
ramifications as to national identities and that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But sticking with the easy version at the moment, putting the politics to one side, the sort of Irish, Welsh, Scottish.
Yeah, I was always
Spiritual
brought up
practice.
to think that there wasn't such a thing as Celticism. There was just the national identity of the Irish, Welsh and Scots.
Yes, absolutely. And that led to an interest in Druidry.
Yeah, yeah.
And after a few years of just kind of general exploring, I decided that was definitely the way I wanted to go and the way I
Right.
wanted to commit.
Right, okay.
So that's been going for, as a personal path, quite a few
So
years.
growing up, was there any other influences who was there that pushed you towards this way?
Well, my father was largely a lapsed Catholic. His mother, my paternal grandmother, was very much a devout Catholic and
Right,
was a
okay.
housekeeper to bishops. And so
Oh,
she
right.
was very, very much
Yeah.
involved in that. And there's a lot of, I know there's all sorts of scandals about Catholicism these days, but there's also a lot of beauty in it. There's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
ritual,
yeah.
ceremony.
Yeah,
Some of the beliefs are very uplifting, some of them less so,
yeah.
without wishing to be
But
contentious.
that's life,
but there's
unfortunately.
difficulty,
That's the
yeah.
way things are.
And that was quite an influence. Certainly paganism, the way I approach it, I like the ceremony.
Right.
There are a lot of pagans who will prefer just to wander in the woods and they don't like
Yeah. No,
the pomp and
I'm with you there. I
flavour,
like,
but,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
I like the bells and the smells bit of it.
Well,
if you-
and we have a ritual coming up imminent on Sunday, actually, don't we?
yes,
So,
yes,
but I like all the format that goes with there.
absolutely.
And let's face it, that the word paganism has been bandied about, but anything before JC was a pagan.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
yes. My mother is open to all sorts of things. She's studied reflexology and all sorts of healing techniques and things over the years. Doesn't do much these days because she's got lots of health issues herself. But that has been an influence in my life, that her sort of interest in things loosely, broadly spiritual.
Yeah, I'm
kind
sure,
of
yeah.
Slightly new age, for lack of a better word. And that's just kind of led to an expansion and looking at different paths. And again, I suppose coming back to my current job, that passion and interest, I've been a member of the Suffolk Interfaith Centre for well over 20 years now, and attended meetings and listened to Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims and Jews and one thing and another, and being open to all sorts of ideas. And for me, they are not exclusive approaches. I know
No.
within some traditions, they will say you're either with us or you're not.
No,
which is
no,
a
I
fair enough
understand.
point. But from my angle, as a polytheist, I believe there are many gods, many goddesses, many
Yeah.
entities. So I don't come at it from the approach that there's my gods and then anything else is nonsense.
No.
So there's an openness to all
I
possibilities.
understand that very much so, and I'm open to everything. I like to find. I try not to give anybody anything that I don't tell them where to research and where to go to, because without being patronising, I'm doing it with respect to all the new age fairy Mary people out there. Lovely as they are, and they mean so well. Their influence is coming from a place where theoretically people, the listeners especially, those who may call themselves a non-believer of anything, they think they're plucking it out of the air from somewhere.
It can, but that is always a danger, isn't it? You can end up as a jack of all trades and master
Yes,
of none.
absolutely.
Which I think there is, and there is an area of contention within a lot of tribal practice of what are perceived as foreign people coming in, taking their ideas, wandering off and giving nothing in exchange
Yes,
to the tribe or
absolutely.
the culture that they've taken from. Often because they don't really understand the context of what it is that they are
No.
picking up on.
And they adapt it to themselves, as our conversation will begin with. When there's a money-making scheme going along, they all jump on the bandwagon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And for want of another, with respect, everybody on the media today, technical media, is either a psychic or a medium or somebody else.
Yeah.
But I do say that with great respect, because there are some lovely people and genuine people out there, and we need people like that. Getting back to what you were saying and your influences here, at any stage did it make you steer off the road of, shall we say, paganism, to have a look and find out about something else?
Well, in terms of my teaching, I have to have a good working knowledge.
I know you do now. I meant earlier on.
Earlier, yes. I've looked into other areas, but I've never really felt called in terms of wanting to practice.
Right.
It's just curiosity, rather than wanting to attend lots of church services or sit on the back pew at a synagogue or anything like that. It's always been more of an intellectual interest rather than a wish to practice.
So do you feel that rituals are handed down from ancestral rituals handed down, or traditions can roll into one as they come back through paganism?
Well, certainly in the sense that the barriers we impose as to where Catholicism ends, where Roman paganism begins, where Islam ends, where African traditional religion begins, are largely down to issues of politics and who's in charge and where they choose to draw the red line, saying go no further than this. If you step back from that position of imposing an ideological structure and just look at it from a historical point of view, the barriers are very blurry.
Yes, they are very blurry. I know that because when I was talking the other day, and we were I was going back 10,000 years pre JC, BSC, if you like, and going back on there when Pharaohdism hadn't even started. There's nothing like that, and then Massacre tombs and things like that, or Massacre huts. We hadn't got the tomb word going then, and the only identical piece that we can bring back from there are the stelas they had outside to explain people who they were, and that was the hierarchy. And that brings me greatly to what I'm going to talk about now, and I hope you're going to agree with me, but you might not, is that the hierarchy of all understandings, I won't say religious beliefs, have been dictated to come down. And as they come down, what I was getting at about traditions, they've adapted those traditions as they're coming down. How do you feel about that?
To a degree, fine. I mean, it's the natural human function to pick up on what's gone in the past.
Right.
Especially if we're looking at cultures, maybe not quite so much the 21st century, but older cultures, where there's a huge respect for ancestors. So merely because you have converted to something new doesn't mean you throw the ancestors out with the bathwater as well. So there's that wish to kind of keep doing what Granny used to do.
Yeah.
Even if you're overlaying it with what this new bishop or this new imam or the new whoever it is that's come in and told you you've got to do instead. So usually rather than doing it instead, people end up doing it as well. And those two gradually come together until it gets to the point where subsequent generations can't tell the difference as to what was a pre-conversion and what's part of the new
I
teaching.
quite agree with that.
Which is a healthy way, I think, to go.
I think it is. Yes. The only unhealthy bit about it is the control that comes with it.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that I do have it on the understanding of not just my understanding, but looking at this, let's call it religious understanding as a whole, that it's the fear aspect that is there that has been the controlling and the dictating all the way through. And I would really like that to be taken away. So I know it's not easy. I know that will never happen, especially in my lifetime. But having said that, then when it does happen, then people will be then completely open and completely understand.
I suppose the innate trouble is this: anyone, not necessarily just those in huge power, a parent raising a child, will often prefer to use the idea of a kind of a bogeyman figure rather than leaving the child to be injured.
Yes.
And then saying you shouldn't have done
Yes.
that.
Yes,
if
that's
you
right.
can scare them off of being injured in the first place. Especially with children who are maybe a bit too young to reason with. So you just say, oh, you mustn't go near there in case the bog monster gets you, to stop the child from falling in the river and drowning. You can kind of see to a degree that fear can be useful if it's being used to prevent more lasting damage. The trouble is it's often used, as you say, to keep someone in power or for all sorts of corrupt purposes. So that what someone's being warned off of doing, oh, we mustn't go and believe all that nonsense over there, because it's all that superstition, that's rubbish, that's this, that's that, that's the next thing, it's dangerous. When in fact they have taken almost wholesale that practice into what they're doing. So you mustn't do it, but we're going to do it anyway.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yes. That is, unfortunately, that is the attitude in a nutshell. Having said that, okay, I'd like to involve you just a bit before we go back onto what we were saying about your everyday life. You're lecturing and on religious studies and the ethics, and the course is coming up. And what you do, I do know you run a pagan course as well.
Yes.
I have done my research. And so, well, I'd like to know a little bit about, my listeners would like to know, I'm sure, like to know a little bit about them. And we will find out about the comments afterwards. Everything, my friends, will go on the credits at the end, so you'll be able to find out. And if not, then if there is something, you can always bell me or email me, Facebook me, whatever you want to do, within reason, of course, and then I will pass on a message.
Lovely, thank you.
So, I forgot the question I was asking, but I'm sure you remembered.
Yes, in terms of courses and so on, outside of the college in my own private time, I'm involved in a number of other educational activities. It's been a lifelong thing, sort of education for me. With the Ipswich Pagan Council, which is now almost 25 years old, it's coming up for 25 years shortly. For most of that time, we've run something called the Grove, which is an introduction to paganism course that lasts 8 sessions, so usually 8 weeks. Just giving people a taste of Wicca and Druidry and heathenry and this and that and the other, and a broad understanding of paganism. The idea was that it should always be open to people who were just interested, without necessarily having an agenda in terms of conversion. So it's not the pagan version of the Alpha course or anything like that, because we'll often get people coming along who have no interest in being pagan, but their husband, their wife, their whoever is, and they're thinking, oh, what's my relative doing? I want to know enough.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Basically to relax so they don't kind of believe all the rubbish the tabloids or anything like that. So it's not everyone who comes on it is pagan. There's lots of other people too. And we've had in the past people who've been vicars and so on who just wanted to do an interfaith study and find out what other people are doing. So that kind of thing. So that runs once a year. I'm also a tutor with the Druid College, which was initially a North American thing. That's been going for quite a few years in North America. And then Joanna van der Hoven, who lives in Suffolk, she's a Canadian, but lives in Suffolk, she was contacted by the American branch to see if she would like to start a British branch. And she in turn contacted me. So she does all of the admin and the practical stuff and a lot of the teaching, and I just kind of flounce around and talk about Druidry at people every now and
I'm sure that's not true. In fact, I know that's not true. But having said that, bless you for saying that. Yeah.
So it's I'll get the easy job, basically. And that runs several times a year. It's primarily 4 events a year, but there's also a few extra bits and pieces along the way. So it's 4 weekends, so there's lots of talk and discussion, and then in the second year we get on to practice. And the idea is to train people who are already identified as Druids. So again, it's not how to become a Druid, it's people who feel that they are, or they're on the verge of making that commitment, and they're interested in the role of priesthood. So they want to know how to conduct a wedding, how to conduct a funeral, how to provide counselling and pastoral support to someone in distress. but also because Druidry is not exclusively oriented to humans. One commonly used image is that of three worlds: the interaction between the human world, the world of the gods and spirits, and the world of what's loosely referred to as the land, which is not just the soil, but the trees, the animals.
I do understand, yes.
Anything that's not human that's there. And that interface. So as a druid you might find yourself providing help and support and advice to forests. I know it sounds odd saying providing advice to forests.
No, it doesn't. It resonates with me, I understand, resonates.
Yes.
Very much.
Or, cats, dogs, horses, whatever. And with the world of spirits, so that can include gods, nature spirits, the dead.
Yep.
A range of other spirits. So it's trying to strike that balance between the interface of the three worlds. And it's the nature of the course is to prepare people for what they might need to, skills to acquire, ideas, philosophical concepts, because often a lot of it is not so much being told how to do something, but it's sitting with a group, discussing, chatting. It bounces ideas that you might never think of
that's
by
right,
yourself. Part of it is knowing not only how to do something, but why to do it in the first place, which is the philosophical side. So why would we conduct a wedding this way? Why would we conduct a funeral that way? What is it you feel happens to somebody when they're dead? Because within Druidry, as most forms of paganism, there is no hard and fast, this happens, you have to believe this, no other option. So you get some Druids who think in terms of reincarnation, some who think more it's the energies of the body dissolve back into the universe, and your cells, the spark of life, your personality, and everything about you becomes part of other living things. So just as the body ends up being part of worms, which end up as part of birds. Which
and I'm sure our listeners here will resonate exactly like I said.
Yes.
I think we touched on something, the fear element before, that nobody is afraid of the death. Someone said it's how you go, but that's fair. That's fair enough.
Yes.
But having said that, everybody has a concept whereby either once you're dead, or we're not just down here just to exist, and there must be something else.
Yes.
My understandings are immaterial, but a lot of people believe that this is an illusion here. Illusion to the point that there may be other worlds, and there are other worlds out there, and I believe that if there is another world or not, and this is personal to me, you're not going to be a saint when you go over there when you first pass, I can assure you that. Because I don't think the two differences of dimensions are that greater apart.
No, and certainly the descriptions given in Irish, Welsh and so on sources imply that the other world is pretty much the same. Hopefully without taxation, but
and we'll go along with that. I've just been doing my taxes this week, so. But having said that, then I'm sure that a lot of listeners would be interested in if not signing up, going along for maybe an introductory talk to find out what's there. I believe that all, as we said before, all strings come from the same bow. So wherever we're led along the path, we're led for that reason of time, development of time, so we can move on to somewhere else. Today the word spirituality is being bandied about. My belief of spirituality is you just need to go out into the garden and just sit quiet, and you can find that spirituality there. That involves what we've been talking about today, and it's all the nature, the wood, the land, and everything else. How do you feel about this new age word that has been spiritually adopted for us, or adapted for us?
Well, it's a problem I have with a lot of words actually is as the usage expands and expands, the more meanings you add to a word, the less meaning it actually has, because it ends up meaning practically anything, at which point it means nothing at all. For a lot of people, I suspect these days spirituality exists in contrast to religion, and for them religion is something they associate with power and hierarchy and gold thrones for bishops to sit on and all of this kind of thing. It's become a negative word, which it shouldn't be, because originally it was just a description of how you understand the world, your spiritual interaction with it, and so on. So it concerns me that we're increasingly seeing people who think there is a division between spirituality and religion, because there shouldn't be. You can have religious belief without corrupt hierarchies and domination and power and control. Is not integral. Does happen a lot, clearly. History shows us 1,000 times over that things go astray, but it doesn't have to be. And I think it's a problem if you start automatically thinking, with whether it's religion or any other concept, politics, for example. I was having this discussion the other day, because like a lot of people, I don't have the most positive view of politicians. And does that almost become a self-fulfilling prophecy? If you think an institution is doomed to corruption, do you never give it a chance to be anything other than corrupt?
No, it's a good point. Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. I think that what you said will resonate with a lot of people. I think that they involve, when they say a religious belief, they automatically think of God, Jesus Christ.
Yes.
They automatically think of that. And maybe from that, then they can see where the adaptation and the power and the control have come from, and that's what they push to one side.
Yes.
Not knowing the situation of that there has always been gods, there has always been power, there has always been dictation.
Yes.
No matter what you do, they'll be there.
And you can, of course, as you say, you take away the formality of religion and just talk about spirituality in some kind of loose, nebulous sense. You can look at many New Age movements, and within 5 minutes of starting, you've got gurus and teachers and one thing and another.
Yes,
and
definitely.
People, as you've already said, about with an eye to the almighty dollar or the almighty pound, who've jumped into that. Let's all sit around going on and finding ourselves, and now that will cost you 50 quid. Thank you very much. And just because something's labelled spirituality doesn't mean it is not vulnerable to the same kind of exploitation.
No, absolutely right. Sometimes it is quite sad the way people's perception of spirituality is, whereby because it's used more now, I think the word spirituality is not as bad as being open. I think the word open is a very controversial word altogether. And people band about today as though it's just, we're open, we can do this. And unfortunately, their concept is not, because they're like horses that are blinking, running down the track. Yes. And all they see is their goals that they've been understanding and everything else. I would say to our listeners that go out and experience, find out, visit different, get away from your concept, visit other understanding. If it means going into other churches, go there. Don't wait to be invited, just go. You don't have to be invited to go through the doors of a sanctuary of any sort. They should be open all the time. Unfortunately, in today's society, that they're not open for the reasons of we all understand about what's going on here. But you can go in there, you can visit. We have some great architecture in church. We have some wonderful effigies that are left. And you can study, you can see, you can find out. And there are great teachers there as well who can steer you the right way if that's the way you want to go. But you can go through any doors to find out. Don't just lock yourself away into one kind of understanding. And you're all beautiful people out there, and you do understand that you can make this move and you don't have to be dictated to. So you can go into one place one day and you can go into another place another day. And that's great, because that's how you find your understanding. Getting back to what we were talking about, Robin, you have 4 books out.
There's 3 of my own, and there's another 4 anthologies to which I've contributed.
Right, okay.
I've only bought 4 today.
Let me rephrase that. You have brought 4 books, Robin. And in that concept, Paul, our studio manager, has taken photographs of these, which will go onto the credits, and there will be all the understandings of where to get hold of you, whether it be email, Facebook, this, that, whatever it happens to be, will be there. And as I said before, that if you can't get anywhere and you can't do this, please just bell me somehow, and then we'll go from there, and I'll pass on the message here. So, on that about courses, what we were talking about, when is your next course starting?
Normally with the Grove, the Introduction to Paganism course, every summer. So the date varies over June, July, depending on what else is happening, and try not to clash with other things and so on. We normally have what we call these days Heritage Day.
Right.
Pagan Heritage Day. Which it's fundamentally an open day, so that we can get in both people who are themselves pagan but maybe new to the area and don't know anyone else and want to make contact. So it's a kind of an outreach thing in that sense. But we also often invite along the police, social workers, teachers, people who might be working with the public, where they could have Muslim clients, they could have Christian clients, they could have atheist clients, but they could have pagan clients. And they're coming along because they want to know, well, what do we do if we're working with someone who's a pagan? And then we can provide them with sort of advice, guidance, training if they want it, on how to work with pagan people without upsetting them or annoying them or misunderstanding them and this kind of thing. And we sometimes get people who just kind of see the banner outside the building, think, what's that about? I've got half an hour to kill, I'm waiting for the bus, let's go and have a look. And sometimes they think, how peculiar, and they wander around away again, or sometimes they stay and have a coffee.
Yeah, it's that interaction to start with. Yes, absolutely.
So normally we do the introductory course after that event, so that people can sign up on the day.
Right, okay.
And because the majority of people who go on that course tend to be people who are very new to paganism, or have only just discovered that their husband, wife, whoever is looking into paganism, and occasionally we get someone who's been pagan for donkey's years who wants to come along just to find out what we're talking about, I suppose. Yeah. But by and large, it's people who are relatively new to the practice.
Well, I'm sure that through our discussions and anything to go in there, you just tell me and I'll pass it on to
Lovely, thank you.
I just want to go off the subject just for a minute here, and that is that Mr. Herne, Robin doesn't know at the moment, but I'm going to try and persuade him to come and do a bit of storytelling at our little centre that we have on the first Friday of the month. And you just have to go there and put that in Rob's Centre First Awareness Centre, first Friday of the month, and you can see. And I would be really looking forward to that, and I'm sure you would after you view the interview today. As time is getting that way, but I don't want to finish just at this moment, I'd just like to ask you that in the future, what do you want to do? What are your goals? Where do you want to push yourself?
Well, I'm working on finishing the next book,
right?
Which has proved a little bit of a struggle, because every time I get part way through it, somebody says, "Oh, we have an anthology chapter for this and a chapter for that," and and you end up doing that. So there's another month gone. But the next book, if I live long enough to finish it, and assuming, of course, that my publishers actually want to publish it, because they might look at it and think that's rubbish, we don't want it. But if they do, it's a murder mystery set in Ipswich in the 18th century, drawing on actual characters.
Brilliant.
Who were around in Ipswich at the time, and looking at some of the folklore, the superstitious beliefs, the magical practices.
Oh, I look forward to that one. I mean, very much so. The history that was involved in locally.
Yes.
I like the history anday, as you know. But I mean, just locally is there.
Absolutely. I've also for 3-4 months now, something like that. Been writing a weekly column for the East Anglian Daily Times on religion and ethics, so be continuing with that.
Yeah, I saw the Woolpit.
Yes, absolutely. And they've asked for some additional, as well as the weekly column, they've asked for some extra articles on different events coming up in the year. So I'll be tackling that.
Brilliant.
Continuing things on the pagan scene. Domestically, my other half has insisted on central heating and all sorts of things to go
Yeah,
into
yeah,
an otherwise largely untouched house that is Victorian built. So there's all sorts of chaos happening at home with walls being, rewired and drilled and this and that and the other. So it's going to be a year of upheaval on that front, and hopefully we'll get to go and visit. My partner is Italian. We'll go to Sicily later this year, which will be a first for me. I've never been to Italy, so I'm looking forward to that.
Very,
and
very
seeing there's
nice.
a lot of architecture, old temples, Roman temples, Greek temples,
Yeah.
all sorts of ancient history in
My
Sicily.
mum and
so-
dad knew that very well because he was like a war hero, really. But I mean, they met in Malta and spent a lot of time in Sicily because my dad opened up the Valletta Harbour after the Nazis shut it down.
Yeah.
And he was the first one, met the king and queen and that kind of
Right.
thing. But yeah, and he talks about Sicily. And then my partner now, or my wife now, she's going to kill me for saying it. But my wife now is, her sister has a big place in Italy. And so she keeps saying go over, but I never get the time to go over them. But anyway, I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
Thank you.
I just want to say beforehand that it's been a pleasure talking to you. That always, Robin.
Thank you.
And we'll have a chat with Paul before we leave for obvious reasons here. But apart from that, thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Robin, and do take care.
Thank
And I look forward to coming up and being with you and talking with you and having lots of other discussions as well.
Excellent.
And I'd like to invite you maybe later on in the year or maybe next year just to see how things are going and see how things have progressed and where we're going from here.
More than happy to.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.